I was trying to pull it on my computer. I got it. I got it.
All right. So we are setting up meeting for Facebook Live. Okay. We're going live in a few seconds here. There we are. We are live on Facebook. How's everyone doing? For those on Facebook, try to join us on the Zoom meetup. Check your emails. If not, type in some questions there and I'll try to get to them here. With that, let's go ahead and start the meetup, huh? Savannah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Savannah. I am a registered nurse in Los Angeles, California. Started investing in real estate beginning of 2020. Bought a couple long-term rentals and then switched into multifamily syndication. So I've been doing that the last couple of years, closing on my fourth apartment complex next week, a 36 unit. So when I switched over into syndications, I launched my brand Net Worth Nurse really as a way to get the message out there to nurses and healthcare professionals that they can passively invest in real estate without doing any work through syndications. And so that's kind of been the evolution of my brand Net Worth Nurse. But looking to get into the short-term rental space, I sold one of my long-term rentals and I'm in a 1031 right now to get a short-term rental just in time for spiking interest rates, which is great. But yeah, I am really passionate about sharing what we're doing with healthcare professionals. And that's how I met Alex and how we created the group. So Alex, I'll kick it over to you and you can intro yourself.
Yes, thank you, Savannah. It's been a whirlwind. I think we're 8 months into this group or something like that. And it's been, I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Hey, my name is Alex Hobby. I'm here in Southern California. I invest in short-term rentals. I have 5 short-term rentals, started that in 2020. It's been an interesting year. Bookings have actually slowed down a little bit. To just talk to my cleaner today, actually bookings are in the Smokies have been the slowest since in the past few years. And so that's why I contacted Rankbreeze. And so Rankbreeze, couple 2-3 months ago, I contacted them to optimize my listing. I've been actually using their service to help underwrite deals because they're you could type in their address and then see how much money a certain property will make. That's been very useful for me. So really pumped. I reached out to Kelvin. I said, hey, Kelvin, I really like your service. Would you be interested in being our featured guest? And he said, yes. So I'm really pumped to have him here today. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. So Kelvin, why don't you introduce yourself, tell the people who you are and what you do and what Rankbreeze can do to help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kelvin. I'm the founder of a company called Rankbreeze. We're a little mixture of software and services. So software is probably where most folks are kind of knowing us. And what we do is we cover ground for three pillars. So the first pillar is rank optimization. So making sure that your visibility is high on Airbnb. That's the platform that we focus on mostly. And then price optimization is the second part. And then market data would be the third pillar for what we try to focus on. And that's around like where to invest, what type of amenities to add into, how to monitor your area and things like that. So that's probably like a quick 10-second idea of what Rankbreeze does.
Yeah, I've used it and specifically for SEO. SEO takes a while, so we're slowly seeing ourselves go up in the rankings, and the whole point of that is you want to get to page 1, maybe 2 the most. And come to find out, I kind of took my eye off the ball. I was on page 10 and 11. I mean, who the hell's booking page 10 and 11? So I think that's been that's one part of Rankbreeze that's helped me out, just to know where you sit.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that that's helping you. And yes, it is a long-term effort, but it's kind of one of those things that once you get it going, at least for what we've seen is that properties that rank higher, they tend to stay there for a longer period of time, ranked higher. There's a lot of like fluctuation in the middle pages, but once you kind of reach the further at the top there, then your property tends to stick around. And that sort of makes sense, by the way. That's like, because there's more data being collected about your property. Airbnb is getting more confident that they can send you send you guests, that you can convert those guests and then provide good hospitality as well. So it is this kind of like the circle of success that kind of works together.
Right. Yeah. Did you have a slideshow to present us, or?
Yeah, I did prepare a slideshow. I wasn't 100% sure what how this was gonna go, but I did prepare something just in case.
Okay.
And
so I made it to where you could share your screen there, because I tend to talk too much here, so I'm gonna just shut my mouth here and let you take it away here.
Yeah, how you guys kicked this off was very smooth, by the way. I did enjoy that.
Oh,
yeah, I will. Let me share my screen, and then we'll go from there.
And then everyone, you guys usually, most of you guys are repeat hang out here with us, and know how we work, but ask questions through the chat live, or raise your hand, and you can do that through the reactions down in the bottom. If you click that smiley face, then you can raise your hand and we can pop off mute and ask your questions live. And then Kelvin, if you're okay with that, I can just kind of interrupt you as questions come through.
Yeah, definitely. I did put together the slides, and I left some room at the end for questions and things like that too. So yeah, just in case that happens like that. Can you guys see my screen? Is it like full screen?
Yeah,
full screen. I see it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so today we'll talk about how to rank your Airbnbs higher. We'll talk a little bit more than just that, but that's, given the name, that's part of the core focus of what we do over at Rankbreeze. Today's agenda, I just kind of want to walk you through what it's like to kind of go through an optimization system that we've kind of configured here. So today's agenda, split into 3 categories. You've got publishing, so you publish your property, assuming you're on Airbnb already. That's usually where most people tend to reach us at. That's usually they have a property in place and they've got a listing already. So you've kind of got your first version of your property, and then at least we like to think of it as your first version. So then we go through to optimization. So that's rank optimization, price optimization, and then once you've kind of got that stuff figured out, then it's time to basically scale your business. And that might mean different channels and also market data as well. And yeah, so first version of your listing is probably the listing that you have today. It might not be optimized for search performance. So that's one thing, right? And you also might not have an idea of where you're ranking to. Sometimes people will say that they're ranking number 1, which can be true, right? But there's also tons of different ways that a person can find your property on Airbnb, right? There's different ways there's different calendar ranges, right? There's different ways to divide a calendar, as well as you have the different guest counts. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's kind of what it means when we're talking about where are you ranking and where's your visibility on Airbnb. All right, rank optimization. So once you start going into Airbnb, if you're like, you're a guest and you just start typing words into the search bar, you're going to start to get a sense for how important, how keywords start to play in this whole thing. Airbnb, well, today's an interesting day because they did an upgrade today to their search search engine, because Airbnb is really just a search engine really for vacation rentals, and they've done an upgrade. I haven't had a time to absorb every single thing about it, but it's an interesting day today nonetheless. And keywords are getting more and more and more important. And even before, like this screenshot was taken before today. So even if you type in something like Miami pool, you're going to get a whole bunch of properties that just start to show up, and you can see that pool is mentioned in the title. So that right there just gives you a little bit of an idea of like the hierarchy that Airbnb has when it comes to organizing all these properties, putting them into keywords. Keywords are a simple way of saying what keywords are. Keywords are words that a search engine is using to organize whatever they're using whatever they have on their search engine. So Google has keywords and things like that. Amazon has keywords. Pinterest also has keywords that they're looking at and things like that. So those are all search engines really at the end of the day. One thing that the Rankbreeze does is that what we do is we pull the top performing top performing or top ranking properties in your area. And we basically reverse engineer the keywords that they have and then tell you things that you can add into your title or into your description. And you can also organize them by average daily rate, occupancy rates, and also the average page that they showed up on as well. That kind of brings us to maybe the first rule that I kind of want to talk about, though, because even though you have these keywords in place and you're getting this data from Rankbreeze, it really is though about how you can take these keywords and position them the best way for pretty much for the guest, right? Because it's all about the guest ultimately. And the first rule that we want to think of when we've got like our search engine optimization hat on is to always think of the guest. So always step into the shoes of the guest. So whenever you're, that comes down to how the guest searches and finds your property and like the different filters that they might apply and what your photo looks like in comparison to other photos on there as well. So that all these things kind of come in place, but it is really, if it just comes down to fundamentals and if you're not using Rankbreeze at all, it comes down to thinking like a guest and always stepping into the shoes of a guest. That's first rule. So the second rule, the second rule is fighting the filter. Everything that a guest does on Airbnb once they start is pretty much just filtering. It's just everything they're doing is basically trying to block you from appearing in the search engine when you think about it like that. So that's kind of the next rule is to fight the filter the best that you can. In Rankbreeze, we have pretty much it's like an amenity baseline. So we have like a thing called the amenities analyzer, and what it tells you is the types of amenities that we pulled from the top performing properties in the area, kind of give you a baseline of what these amenities have, and then we kind of tell you, okay, these popular amenities are these are the ones that they have that you might want to add, or maybe you haven't turned on in your property, because sometimes you would not believe I see a lot of like multi-million-dollar properties that like don't have like the fridge checked off on there and things like that. So these are just opportunities, and Airbnb just loves, they love more amenities. That's just, and it makes sense, right? The more amenities that a property has, the more valuable it can be from the Airbnb standpoint. So each area has basically an amenity baseline that you should aim for, and you should cover those common amenities. And then there's also some rare amenities that you can find as well from the top performing properties. And Rankbreeze pretty much just shows you what you're missing, what top properties have that you're missing that you might want to turn on or add.
Kelvin, can I ask a question real quick? Because actually, sure. And this has to do with Verbo, and I don't know if Airbnb works the same exact way, but we're in a group text with the people in our community, and we all own pool cabins. And one of them said, "Hey, I went to look for my listing, and I couldn't find any of them, like none of them." And it wasn't until someone, the guest, actually clicked pool as an amenity, then all of a sudden we showed up. And I asked the question, like, should I uncheck pool? So that way I would go into all of those other listings that didn't have pools. And my first photo has a picture of a pool. And it's like, well, okay, maybe that stands out. Like maybe it's an amenity that someone isn't looking for, but then all of a sudden when they see, maybe it's something that they want. Any thoughts on that? Or
sorry, so this is an issue that's happening to you right now, that so you're trying to find, you can't find your property, and right. Unless you have pool checked off, and then you show up.
Yeah, unless the guest checked pool, right? Then all of a sudden I show up. Then it's interesting because then I see all of these pool cabins. But the thing is, I'm competing against all pool cabins.
Right.
If I uncheck it, can I compete against all of the other cabins that don't have pools? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a competitive advantage there.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I think as time goes on, Airbnb will certainly get smarter, at least in like the little brief new updates that they did today. They're pretty much saying that they're trying to analyze photos and titles and reviews to categorize properties by specific features. So hopefully that's kind of working in your favor there. I don't know. I guess perhaps turning it off might be you might want to give it a try. And I mean, I guess the thing about it is like you just have to test it, because it's like I really don't know exactly, but if you test it, maybe remove the pool off for 1 or 2 weeks. Make sure you leave it off for like a full week cycle at least, and see how that goes. You can also check to see how that impacts your rankings and your visibility too. When you do that, that'll be like a good little thing to test out for sure.
I think what we're gonna do is do it on one platform and not the other, and then see. And if the other platform started, because the thing is, even on Verbo, it was hard to find my listing. So, okay, thanks.
Okay. Now I'm just gonna be thinking about that. Okay, so back to this presentation here. So what you're looking at right now is some data pretty much around whether or not you should have Instant Book on. That sometimes is a question that people have. And overwhelmingly, the data that we've seen is that properties, this is representing all of the properties that showed up on the first position all the way down to the 300th position. And you can pretty much just tell, just given how high that is. The orange line represents Instant Book. So yes, Instant Book is something that you should have turned on. And you can kind of tell that orange line slopes down as well. So the further and further back in terms of page position, then the less relevant Instant Book becomes. But also you can see at the bottom line, you've got this blue line, and that's not having Instant Book on, and it's slowly upticking back there too, up in the back pages. So that's, if your friend is asking you, should you have Instant Book on, you can maybe reflect back on this, and you can kind of tell them you saw a chart that measured all these properties in Houston over a period of time, and overwhelmingly, yes, Instant Book Airbnb is not lying to you when they say that Instant Book does help you with your search performance. Number 3, so ranking factors. Ranking factors are they're essentially they're metrics that Airbnb is trying to they're paying attention to. And I like to think of search engine optimization almost as like an art and a science. So you've got these metrics such as click-through rate and dwell time and conversion rates and things like that, right? Those are the metrics, but the art part is the flavor that you can add to your property to improve those metrics, right? Because Airbnb is it's like a machine. It's just a computer, basically, essentially, and it's analyzing a bunch of different data, trying to do the best that it can. But it's just really looking at numbers ultimately, right? It's just trying to break everything down into numbers, and that's what these Airbnb ranking factors are. There's about 150 of them as well, 150 plus. If you go to rankbreeze.com, or you can just type in Airbnb ranking factors on Google, and you'll pretty much find this article there. And it's a very lengthy article, so you might want to read it on your computer, not necessarily on your phone. And there's just a bunch of different Airbnb ranking factors there that you can look at, study, and these are things that we've tested and looked at as well. It's not all 150, but it's certainly a good start as well. One thing though, one thing that you can do when we talked about art and science was photos, right? I don't think we could talk about SEO without really talking about photo performance. And your photos tend to, things that your photos can try to influence is click-through rates. So click-through rates is the amount of people that viewed your property when they're searching, and then click through and landed on your property. So that's a metric that Airbnb is looking at. And your photos and your title are pretty much the biggest things that you can control, at least to try and influence those things. Time on page is another factor that Airbnb looks at. So they've just seen correlations between properties that get booked the most tend to have longer periods of time that people are spending on them. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because you're trying to make a purchasing decision. It's very easy to dismiss a property, but it's harder to look at a property and have to analyze it as well, to think about, okay, is this right for our group? Is this right for me and my girlfriend, or whatever? They're basically trying to make a decision, and that decision takes time. And Airbnb essentially understands that, okay, longer time somebody spends on a property, then the better chances we'll probably assume that it's going to convert and also want to rank it better. If you aren't hiring professional photographers, I would say definitely hire them. It is like a must. It's a must there. Be different whenever we'll talk about that a little bit more, but try to be a little bit different when it comes down to your cover photo. The first 5 photos are also very important as well. When you're clicking on Airbnb, when on the search results page, there's the ability to click on the photos, and you can click on the little thumbnails, and pretty much I think when it comes down to human irritation, how irritable it is to look at small photos, a person can really only go so far and look at those tiny little photos before they decide, okay, we're not going to go there, or we're going to click through. So those first 5 photos are super important for you, just to capture a guest in general from the search page onto your property. But then also when they're there, those are the first 5 photos that they see too, so it becomes very, very apparent that that Airbnb is really trying to put some focus on those first 5 photos. Aim for 35 photos. That's in general what we've seen is like the baseline for top performing properties is they have around 35 photos. In more competitive areas though, you're gonna need to have more photos. This is a chart pretty much showing you the number of photos in Gatlinburg. So from the first page to the 5th page, you're pretty much looking at about 40 to 50 photos. So, in the last slide, I talked about 35 photos minimum. In general, you want to have, the more competitive the area, at least we've seen, and Gatlinburg is pretty competitive, then you want to have more photos. And you can, I don't know, for some reason, the more photos a person has, the higher correlation it has to top ranking, to top ranking properties. And you can actually see there. So one interesting thing that we'll maybe pause here is that line, it goes down, right? So it goes from 50 down to about 40, and then it kind of shoots back up at that 100 range. We don't know exactly the reason why that is the case, but we have noticed though that the properties in like the first 5 pages, those properties tend to stay there and stick around there a lot longer. There's not as much shuffling around and things like that. So those properties tend to stay ranked well in the top 5 pages. So yes, being number 1 is important on the first page, but even being on the first 5 page, we've seen some stability in there in terms of properties. And then after page 5, it's kind of like, things get shuffled around a lot.
Kelvin, so that
Yes.
applies to most markets that you see. I know that you posted something there for Gatlinburg, and there's actually a lot of people on this call with homes in Gatlinburg, but like beach properties, desert properties, tiny homes, big homes, is that pretty standard, like around 40, 50 photos or something like that, or the more photos you have?
I don't know, I don't know if, so yeah, I guess we don't really look at stuff from a property type perspective. So it's not like we don't break them down in terms of cabins or tiny homes or A-frame homes or anything like that. It's usually based on cities. But yes, in terms of cities though, from the different cities that we've seen and looked at the data, it does tend to be like those first 5 pages. There's some stability in there. I don't know exactly in terms of photos, but yeah, from what we've seen, more competitive areas tend to have more photos.
Okay.
But 35 is the baseline. So don't have less than 35, at least. Don't have less than 35 photos for your properties.
Okay. Thanks.
One kind of thing I like to lean on is for your cover photo, having something that's also jolting but imaginative for the person coming. So, a vacation is a really it's a really fun thing for a person, right? They're going through this process and they're getting ready to stay at a place, and you kind of have to connect with them a little bit, right? Because this might be the only vacation they have all year long, quite frankly, right? It could be the only time that they get a chance to get away and spend some time with their family or maybe with some friends there. So having a photo that's jolting and imaginative, I think is a pretty good way to think about what a great cover photo looks like. So you can kind of see here, we've got a photo probably from Gatlinburg, I'm guessing, and then we've got another photo with a person with sitting there on the hot tub with a glass of wine and a sort of bottle of wine, and just looking out there. That's like very imaginative. You can really see, trying to get that person to imagine themselves being at that property. And the third one is a view. I think that one's from Queenstown, I think. New Zealand. But anyway, so yeah, jolting and imaginative, that's something you might want to consider for your perfect cover photo. Here's another photo that can be jolting, but maybe not so much imaginative. This photo is awesome because it's the stairs, they're kind of like crooked too. That's one fun aspect of it. And I love too that it's the cover photo is really, it's kind of pointing towards this dark room that you'll be spending the night in. Yeah, I don't know. I just like pulling in these examples here. And also, I think you wouldn't be surprised, but this photo I found at the last page of Airbnb. So it's still there. It's still but it's on the last page there. So that'll kind of yeah, that's kind of an example of a jolting photo, but maybe not necessarily imaginative. Number 4, know where your rankings and visibility is. That's you can't really know where you're going unless you know where you are as well. If you've never seen what rankings can potentially look like when it comes down to your Airbnb rankings, this is what a chart looks like. And I'll say the bigger your property is, the more lines you have, because each one of these lines represents a guest count. So each time a person is searching on Airbnb, they usually have a guest count in place. And what this chart is showing you is your guest count performance over a period of time. And each one of those dots, even though it looks, it's just a dot, what that's actually representing is an average of how you're performing over multiple dates, multiple date ranges, but for that guest count. So for example, how you're performing this weekend, as well as the weekend, maybe 5 weeks from now, and how that guest count's performing there. So that's kind of like a high level overview of like where your visibility is. You can also look at things from like a table format too, which I tend to find is a little bit more valuable, because your rankings, when that dot is essentially composed of what's in this table. So it's broken down into different date ranges, as well as the different guest counts. And I actually think looking at it in a table format is a little bit better than looking at it in the chart, because the chart can sometimes be deceiving for you as well. Because when let's say you're ranking really well, right? Let's say you're ranking really, really well, and then somebody books your property for a month. They just book it for an entire month. So all of a sudden now your visibility is, you've actually reduced your visibility, and the high ranking guest counts, your high ranking stuff is actually gone now. So in some ways it can look like you're going down, but that's actually not the case, right? It just means that there's no, you're losing visibility. So in some ways, yes, you are losing visibility, but you also have bookings. So it's kind of like it's the other side of the coin, really. So I like to look at things in table format. I find a little bit easier to understand. Listing optimization tips. Each market is completely different, so make sure that you're pretty much testing things, because Airbnb needs time to essentially absorb the changes that you make. So if you make a change to your, let's say you have a photo of a view and a hot tub, and maybe you have a tree house with a playground in it, and those are all really compelling things that you may want to add as your cover photo. And in some cases, you don't really know until you test it. So when you make that change, though, you want to give it a little bit of time. So you want to leave it for a week or 2 weeks, just because Airbnb needs to absorb the data, understand if this was a positive or a negative change for you. You can also look at your rankings and whether or not that hurt or helped your rankings too. And you can kind of go from there in terms of which photo would be the best performing photo for you. This might also go with like cancellation rates and things like that too. Maybe you're changing cancellation rates depending on seasons. That could be potentially one thing to test as well. Test everything. That means photos, titles, cancellation policies, offers too. Offers, yeah, you can run promotions in Airbnb, but I think one thing that's probably pretty valuable to think about is if you can kind of think about your entire calendar, and you were to think of some sort of offer that you could provide a guest to come, right? And it doesn't have to be all 12 months. Maybe you can break it down in terms of 4 seasons at least. And then just a little bit more investment on your end. For example, it could be like anybody that books in the month of May gets 2 bottles of wine or something like that. If they book a stay for over 4 nights, for example, that's kind of helping you with your conversion rate. Conversion rates are super, super simple. And yeah, when it comes down to thinking like a guest, right? They're kind of going through this process here. And the hardest part is pretty much when they land on your listing and then decide whether or not they're going to book or not. So whatever you can do to get that slight edge pretty much over another property that they're considering, then the better off you will be. And that's what it means by testing out different offers. You can test these offers in your title, in your photo, things like that. All right, so that's the rank optimization part. That's the rank optimization part. When it comes down to price optimization, I think you guys are probably pretty well versed in pricing stuff. So I'll just go a little bit into this. At least for me, I like to think about always optimizing weekends, because the weekends first. Those are the dates that always get booked the fastest, and the more you can leverage that, the more you can kind of pull out as much as you can, because they're most desirable days. So for us, you can kind of monitor your competitors. You can add competitors into Rankbreeze, and you can look at the different base rates, and you can kind of see the supply and demand of your most immediate competitors, and kind of make some pricing decisions on things like that. You might want to also understand like your pricing limits. So when it comes down to top ranked properties, because that's kind of the focus of at least this call today, is what are the top ranking properties priced at? So you can, in Rankbreeze, you can see the average price of the first page of properties, so you can kind of get a sense for, okay, how are things doing on that first page there. And if you want to go a little bit deeper than that, you can also understand a little bit of the ranges of pricing too. So in this case, you can see the nightly price was $1,800. The minimum price per night on that was actually $193. So that's a pretty big difference. And the maximum price was $4,800. So I think this was grabbed. I think this was in Los Angeles, I think, when I grabbed this screenshot here. But this kind of gives you an idea. Okay, these are the min, this is the max, this is where we are, and this is how far we can really push our pricing strategy based on this date range and also this guest count as well. All right, so that's the pricing part. Next part, we can talk about channel optimization. And when it comes down to channel optimization, at least from the things that we've gone over today, some of these things can be carried over to other platforms. For us, we really only focus on Airbnb because it's complicated to focus on multiple multiple search engines. It's similar to Google. It's like when people are building tools and things like that for traditional search engines like Google, they're really only focused on Google, and there's not like a Bing expert and things like that. Not to say that VRBO is not important. It's just for us, we focus purely on Airbnb right now. But some of these things can be transferred over, right? So because all search engines have some similarities to them. The basic one is pretty much click-through rates. The more click-worthy you can make your title and your photos, you can pretty much trust that you can transfer that over to another platform, and it should work for you the best. So for example, remember when we were talking about hot tub versus view versus a playground, once you kind of tested those things out and you have some confidence that this is the best photo that we know traditionally will get the most guests to click over to us, you can transfer that over to VRBO and pretty much assume that it's going to work for you. Highly ranked listings have a bit of a moat to it. We talked about this before. I call it kind of the snowball effect. Properties that rank higher tend to stay and stick there for a longer period of time. And also it's a long-term thing, right? So if we're thinking very, very long-term, the better ranked your property is, of course, the more data that Airbnb is able to collect on your property. That's why it stays ranked higher. But beyond that too, you're also getting more guests, right? And the more guests that you can get in general, the more you can kind of transition those guests into returning guests or direct bookings. So yes, I know that a lot of stuff we talk about is getting better search performance on the OTAs, but it is valuable to create your own channel as well. So if you're not collecting information about your guests, at least like emails and things like that, then I think definitely that's something you should be doing. And one other thing too around that is if you're going to collect somebody's email, try to send them an email fairly soon after they've stayed. Like you don't want to send an email 6 months later when it's like out of nowhere and they're not really sure exactly who you are. You just want to make sure you're keeping in touch with them, and they, and that also helps with spam too, so that you're not kind of going into a spam folder because you're just sending a bunch of emails all of a sudden to people that you haven't had contact with before. So if you kind of work with that, and as soon as they leave, you can send them an email, maybe make them an offer as well. Then I think that would be a good decision. All right, so that was channel optimization, market data, decisions. From what we've seen, at least, the most successful investors tend to invest out of their hometown. It's very rare for your hometown to be the best area to invest into. And as Alex said, we have a product called the Market Scanner. Market Scanner is kind of a mixture of a Chrome extension. And if you have this Chrome extension installed, you can pretty much look at different properties on Airbnb and see individually how they perform. And then also you can click a button and we'll collect all the properties in the area and give you stats like the top properties, top amenities, occupancy rates, nightly rates. And this works for any market as well. So it's not restricted to just your area. You can go and you can create a what we call it's like a market report. You can create a market report for any area, and then you can continuously monitor that area as well.
Yeah, that Chrome extension, I mean, that's worth it right there. I mean, I use that all the time.
It is very fun.
Yeah. And I want to be nosy. Sometimes I'm like, what are my neighbors doing or something like that. So yeah, I use it all the time.
Cool. So I think that's pretty much it. And if you're interested in trying us out, then you can just find us on rankbreeze.com.
Kelvin, I'm almost 2 years into short-term rentals. And I just started using you guys within the last 2-3 months. I mean, would you recommend someone like starting out, like right off the bat, like, hey, I'm going to give you my listing? Because that's what I did. I paid for you guys to optimize my listing. Can someone, like, let's say, buy a property, and even while it's in escrow, can you guys just write the copy and just start like from day one?
Yes, that is something we do. This is something we do. It's a little different. So because we talked about the software part of it, right? So the services end is where we go and we use the tool to create a new listing description, and then we do these different SEO campaigns that we could talk about a little bit later. But yes, we do that currently. It's very simple. Pretty much people just give us a bullet point list of what they need. And then if they can share photos with us, sometimes it just depends on the scenario, whether it's like a property they just purchased. So they could send us the real estate listing for it and we can get the photos in that way. As long as pretty much if you can just equip us with a bullet point list and some photos, that's really all that we need to do the like the copywriting service, like the description service.
Hey guys, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and jump on in here. Savannah, did you have some?
Yeah, I was kind of more interested in kind of like the evolution of this product and who created it and why and how you guys are kind of developing it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm the founder. So I created it in I think 2018. 2018 was when we kind of was it 2018? Well, I'll tell you. So we started as a blog, actually. So we started as a blog. It was just me kind of experimenting with different things and writing about it and things like that. And then that eventually became more and more interesting for people because it's kind of something you first like as soon as you hop onto Airbnb, you kind of get your prices sorted out and you've got your photos and you've done all the design for the property, but pretty quickly after you tend to realize there's like some like the Airbnb doesn't really allow you to organize things in ascending and descending price because they put millions and millions of dollars into their search engine. So yeah, we started as a blog and then eventually transitioned into this into what we have today. And the three things that we focus on are rankings, pricing, and market data. And pretty much I just float around each of those pillars. And essentially my day is spent rebaking things. So going from like a cupcake to a muffin to a wedding cake. That's pretty much our process when it comes down to development.
Yeah.
Is that helpful? I don't know if that was, I don't know if that's interesting or not.
I kind of want to dive into it deeper a little bit of like what features have you evolved specifically and more recently to make your product like either super user friendly or more applicable to short-term rental investors?
Yeah. So the first thing that we had was pretty much just the ability to track your rankings, because I was doing that manually and it was pretty annoying because I'm checking like every guest count and things like that. So probably the two things that have been that people tend to gravitate towards right now is the market data part of it. I think you guys are all investors from what I can tell. So that's one part of it. So you have this Chrome extension, you can search for any you can look at any listing and then kind of click around and once you position the Airbnb map, you can click a button and we'll collect all the properties in that area, produce a report for you. So that's one kind of new-ish thing. And then we also have this area called the optimization hub. So once you come into Rankbreeze, there's essentially you're hit with like a guide. This is like a screen and it asks you like, why are you here? Are you here for improving your rankings? Are you more interested in pricing? Are you more interested in market data? And if you click around, pretty much there's these guides that pop up there. But if you're interested in rankings per se, then what happens is that you're led to this area called the optimization hub. And the optimization hub has these different tools in it that pretty much that once you arrive in there, hopefully you'll leave with a better, more optimized listing. So it's looking at, there's like a thing called the keyword ideas tool. There's the amenities analyzer. It's looking at different amenities. We have a review analyzer as well. So it's looking at your reviews and it's looking at your competitors' reviews too. I actually really like that one. I didn't mention it in here, but the competitor reviews are actually pretty helpful because it's the reviews of what people are actually saying about your competitors. And there's just like so much value in almost in terms of even from a content perspective, the just writing the way that a person talks is very easy, especially when it comes down to people who booked properties that weren't yours, but potentially could have booked properties that were yours. And the things that they found valuable there, we're basically grabbing things like that and little snippets, little review snippets of popular things and unique things that people are saying. So those are probably the two things: is that optimization hub area, and then the market data stuff.
Yeah, awesome. I love learning about the tech. I've like recently kind of jumped into the tech startup space and learning about these gaps that people are filling. And it's so amazing what you're doing. Like your product, you saw a gap in the market and you're there filling it. And some people think like, okay, why isn't Airbnb doing this already? Why does Rankbreeze exist? You know, type thing. But you guys are like finding avenues of business for people who are interested in a product like you have to offer in that development. Like I would love to dive into like your funding and app development, like your series funding and VC raising for it, but I'll probably talk to you more offline about that. But there's another question that popped in about Rankbreeze from someone I think on Facebook. It says, does Rankbreeze account availability if it's blocked by a booking from another platform versus if I were to just block it for direct booking?
Oh, that's a good question. We certainly try to take into account things like that. You know, we're looking at the calendar, trying to it's an algorithm. So it's just basically trying to understand, okay, is this a reservation or is this a block night? How is it? Again, that's a pretty hard problem, I would say. You know, that's why AirDNA exists and things like that. But yes, that is what we do. And yeah, so we do take into account things like that. Yeah, we try to.
One other thing too, Kelvin, because you talk about click-through rate earlier, and one thing we do in our Facebook group is we kind of share everyone's listing and we ask everyone to do a wish list and all of that.
Right.
I mean, are we wasting our time here? I mean, it's something free to do and we all do it for everyone. I mean, is that helping our listing at all?
Yeah, wish listing does help. Wish listing does help your property. But yeah, you do kind of have to think a little bit about the negatives of that, right? So it's like the more people you send to your property that don't actually book your property is in some ways can be harmful for you as well, right? Because you're actually hurting your conversion rate. So the amount of people that landed on it and booked it. I would assume though that like, you know, it's still taken as an action. So if somebody arrives and they actually like they wish list the property, it's better than them just leaving and not doing anything at all. But you know, that's kind of a little bit of the gamble that you take when you're posting things. Like I think you probably have a thread. Is that right? Like yeah. So it is a little bit of a risk. It is a little bit of a risk.
Book each other's properties. That's what.
Yeah, actually, yes, that would be the best thing to do. That would be the best thing to do. I'm not even joking. Like, you know, that's yes, that would be like a very, you know, because you know, once you get a booking on Airbnb, Airbnb has, they have like a score. So each listing has a score, and every time a property gets booked, that score changes. And I think that's probably why you'll notice when you get a booking, you kind of get like, you get these like waves of things that happen. There's usually like a wave of bookings that happen, and that's because there's a shift that's happening there.
Happens all the time. Like I dropped my price $50 and then all of a sudden 6 people booked it and I'm like, oh crap, I dropped it too fast.
Yeah, well, it's okay. You can raise it back up and things like that too.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess Savannah, one thing I kind of wanted to talk about or maybe mention was that you were talking about the tech space and you're getting interested in that stuff. My background is in SEO, so that's sort of in a way I'm just like it's almost like a person with a hammer looking for things to hammer, you know, looking for hole. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard that term before. So just naturally, it was just something I noticed. Maybe other people don't notice those things. I'm sure. I'm sure other people have different paths in life that cause them to find specific issues that they think that they could be good at solving, for example.
Yeah, I love it.
I think Liz has a question here.
Hey, Liz.
Hey, Liz.
Hey, guys. Hi, Kelvin. I was looking at your website and it mentions the email marketing service. Could you talk a little bit about what all that what it contains, and do we have to prepare copy for that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I I don't think we're actually going to be doing that much longer. It's just being, yeah, yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing that much further. I'm sorry about that. But I can kind of tell you what we did and like, the setup process around that kind of thing. So you pretty much need to, collecting emails is something you can do to essentially start the creation of a new channel, right? So Airbnb is this one channel, VRBO is another channel, and then you have your direct bookings channel. And collecting emails gives you an opportunity to stay in touch with the people that stayed at your property, and kind of just like leverage that relationship a little bit more. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean a booking per se, but it might be a referral. It might be a way for them to leave you a review for your Facebook page or Google or wherever, pretty much. You can kind of build certain triggers that go along with that. And what that service did was it essentially takes your it kind of helps you with setting up like an email process so that you can follow up with people in a timely manner over a period of time, as well as just different ways that you can kind of leverage your that email list a little bit better. So for example, things like a newsletter, pretty much. So you can create a newsletter. You can send folks information about your area. Pinterest is a really great place, by the way, to find articles and content that you don't have to write, that you can just send to people pretty much. And it's usually like really personable stuff because it's like a blogger that's not really ranking well on Google. So it's like a little bit more of a hidden gem, I might say. But yeah, that's sort of what that looks like. It was pretty much helping you take those emails and utilize them a little bit more with basically different service providers. So there's like MailChimp and there's ActiveCampaign, and there's a few other ones. ActiveCampaign is the one that we like to use, and yeah, it's pretty reasonable. But it is, I mean, besides the tech though, it's kind of like that funnel that you're trying to build to maintain that relationship. And sometimes it can just be a simple question of sending somebody an email and asking them if they're coming back to your neighborhood this year. Yeah, simple things like that you can kind of automate.
Awesome, thank you. And what about your the optimized listing service? You said that people could provide you a bullet point list of their amenities or of what they offer. Is that what it is?
That's if you don't have the property live yet on Airbnb. So yeah, it's kind of like if you're onboarding a bunch of different properties, if you're a property manager or you're just kind of getting things ready, or maybe you're not the best writer. Sometimes, yeah, people will ask us to create the listing description with them, because we're kind of using those keywords in there as well. And it can be kind of difficult to weave things in, because it's not everyone has the skill of being a wordsmith. But anyways, so the listing optimization service, how that works is you pretty much just tell us the property you want us to work on. We'll go in and do a bunch of different research and pretty much provide back to you an optimized listing for you. And then once that's done, there's actually a bunch of work that's going into that. It might seem quite simple, but you get a listing description back. There's some photo stuff that we do as well. And you'll get some new photos back for you. And you'll get like a little extra bit of report. And then once you kind of look through that and it's okay with you on your end, you can go and upload the property on your side, and it's just copying and pasting, super simple. And then we do these things called they're SEO campaigns. So it's the SEO campaigns are broken down into 3 campaigns. It's a wish listing campaign, a time on page campaign, and a click-through rate campaign. These are all things that we pretty much talked about right now. But what that means is it's like literally people going, searching, finding, clicking, liking, hardening your property, spending a longer period of time on there. And those are the things that we're doing. And we span that over, it spans over a few weeks. So it's about 3 to 4 weeks of time of which we're doing that. It's not all the time though. It's kind of meant to kind of, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to essentially help you relaunch a listing. So you've got a listing, and let's say, like you have your original listing that you have today, and then we go through our work, and then Airbnb can see, okay, you've done a whole bunch of work here, right? So we're going to pay some additional attention to this listing because you've made some changes to it, and probably some noticeable changes to it. And it's just, it's just more optimized for conversions. And those SEO campaigns are meant to help influence pretty much those metrics that Airbnb is paying attention to, but also mix it in together with the more natural things, like, like the actual guests who are coming and looking for your property and are interested in it. So it's kind of working in together with it, and it spans over a period of weeks on purpose for that reason. Yeah.
I would
Awesome.
highly
Thank you.
recommend that for everybody. I mean, I spent hours trying to write my copy, and I still had like spelling errors and stuff. It was like really embarrassing here. And like they know exactly. I mean, one extra booking a night can pay for the whole thing, right? And I think it's totally worth it. But hey, Kelvin, we're coming up on the hour here. How can people get a hold of you? And Rankbreeze has a trial period, right? If people wanted to start using your service.
Yeah, we do. We don't have a free trial, unlike other folks, but we do have a paid trial. It's a very nominal fee between $7 and $9. And if knowing your group, if you guys are investors, I would go for the middle plan, which is I think it's the standard plan. It's the one in the middle there. When you're looking at the chart there, and that one gives you access to the market data part of it. So that probably will be more interesting for you guys. But yeah, you can pretty much just find us at rankbreeze.com. I'm floating around in support like all the time, pretty much. So you can just reach out through the contact form if you have any questions or anything like that. And then, once you sign up, there's some guides that are available for you, like right when you arrive, and there's like kind of like a demo too, as well, to see what things look like when things are up and running. It's very simple as well. You don't have there's no integrations involved as well. It's very, very simple. You don't have to worry about being integrated with any particular person or any other software app. It's just pretty much you're copying and pasting your listing, and then you're getting ready to go after that. So I think that's probably the easiest way to get started. And we're always available pretty much. So you can just reach out.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. I love the piece too about tech is that it evolves so fast. I already know, since you've started, and that's why I was asking about new concepts, because it's just, you see gaps, and then the problems you're encountering every single day are leading to further solutions to create a better experience for your customers. So I think it's super cool to jump in with tech like this, because I think you'll continually evolve to build great features for your customers. I just see it. So awesome. I love it. This is really eye-opening to me for sure. I hope everyone got a lot of good information out of this. Like Kelvin said, he's very involved in the business. Reach out to him if you have any questions. We'll throw up the recording of this on my YouTube channel, Net Worth Nurse, and then I'll throw it in the Facebook group, Healthcare Professionals Investing in Real Estate. So you guys will be able to get a copy of this. But thank you for hanging out for the night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. See you
Awesome,
guys next week. We're talking taxes next week. Okay, guys.
Yay. Taxes are good though in real estate,
Yeah, my amazing CPA, Amanda Hahn, will be here, and we're talking taxes. So
love it.
Okay guys.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Bye.